Janis Joplin. In October of 1966, I was in Golden Gate Park fooling around with a new camera. Suddenly I came upon Janis Joplin and Big Brother and the Holding Company playing on the back of a flatbed truck. They weren't well known at the time, so the crowd was small. I elbowed my way to the front and managed to get some really great photos of her. A couple of years later, I sold 3 prints to Janis's family and her estate. I met with her brother Michael in a hotel in San Francisco to give him the photos. Michael's life is spent managing Janis's estate. I asked him what it was like to have been the younger brother of a girl who was so famous and then died. He was very forthcoming, and he said, "I was just a young hippie kid, sort of a misfit in Port Arthur, Texas. Suddenly, my older sister became famous. Then with her death, everybody wanted to come to our house. So I know all of the people in the rock and roll music business, from Paul McCartney on down, because of my sister. It's been an amazing life." Ever since I photographed her in Golden Gate Park so early in her career, I've been hugely interested in Janis Joplin's story. A few years ago, the Big Brother's road manager, John Cook, published a book called On the Road with Janis Joplin. He ends the book with one of the most passionate writings about music I've ever read. He says, "I dreamed about Janis once, in the first year after she died. She came to say goodbye and to seek, one last time, my blessing. In the dream, I'm backstage at a concert in a huge auditorium. I can see neither the stage nor the audience, but I can hear Janis at her best, singing her heart out, backed by the Full Tilt Boogie Band. When the song ends, the audience gives her a roof-raising ovation. She comes tripping down the ramp to where I'm waiting, and I see in her face the same little girl uncertainty that I'd seen so many times before. Despite the sustained applause in the auditorium, there's a real concern in her voice, and she asked me, did I do okay?" I take her in my arms and hug her with all my strength. "You did great. God bless and Godspeed." Tom Greening, the psychologist I mentioned earlier, is crazy about music, especially traditional jazz. He's also a writer and a poet. He wrote a piece recently that knocked me out because it captures the essence of the thrill that we all feel about music from any time period. The piece is called Music Store Clerk. It must have been around 1910 when 16-year-old Baby Dodds got tired of banging on those tin cans and came in with his $10. I was sure glad I had a cheap snare drum to sell him. A little later, I ran the pawn shop at Rampart and Perdido Streets. I wanted $8 for a tarnished B-flat cornet in the window. A black kid came in on the Karnofsky junk wagon. He was playing a little tin horn, actually got music out of it. He wanted that cornet so bad. I sold it to him for $5, and Louis Armstrong paid off the rest in only 6 weeks. And then in 1920, I was the London store clerk who showed Sidney Bechet his first soprano sax. Before he even picked it up, I could hear all 5 of his summertime choruses soaring out of it. Next, I was in the guitar store when Bobby Zimmerman arrived with his mother. Right then, I knew he'd become Dylan. I'd have given him that first guitar for free if it weren't for the boss. Well, it's been a slow day, and it's 5 o'clock. Only an hour to closing. The door opens. This one can't be over 14, but he's got that look. The Ballad of Sigmund Freud. At the beginning of this chapter, I pissed and moaned about not being a musician and how hard it is for me to learn to play a musical instrument. I still contend that if I'd had a musician in my family, a cheerleader, who would have given me some support and encouragement, I could have learned to play an instrument. You know, you see these bluegrass bands, everybody in the family plays, and little Johnny picks up the mandolin at 4 years old, and by the time he's 30, he's an expert. All because it started in the family. But that's water under the bridge. So undaunted, a few years ago I bought a banjo and took a few lessons. For one of my recent shows, I made up a song to illustrate a point in the show. It's called The Ballad of Sigmund Freud. It tells the story of my going into therapy when I was a little kid and then finally outgrowing Freud altogether. It is sung to the tune of Worried Man Blues, with huge gratitude to Jay Lehman on electric bass. It seems like a great way to end this chapter on my love of music.